and I gathered that the country was in a bad state, and every last soul, well, able-bodied man was called up, including the boatman on the cut. And there were boats being laid up, and the Ministry of Transport in their waterways section advertised in various magazines for women to come and man the boats.
They advertised for men first, and the men couldn't take it. They had 100 men, and I remember being shown an admiral, retired admiral, had turned the side bed into a bath, but even that it didn't satisfy them, and they all left except one bus driver and his wife. Then they, any port in a storm, they asked the women.
We did 2 round trips. Took about 6 weeks, after which we were supposed to be trained, and then we were let loose as crews on boats, and eventually, if you felt strong enough, you took charge of a pair of boats, if you could get 2 others to work with you. And I was Daphne French's mate, training on the training boats for 6 months. And then I had my own boats because Helen and Virginia said that they would work with me. Little did they know.
Oh, it worked out well.
And we had the Hercules and the Cetus, and we worked a while on the Grand Union, mostly carrying coal back down the cut. But then we were hired by S.E. Barlow to work on the Oxford cut, so we were the only pair of women's boats on the Oxford. Domestic sort of a tunnel. It's well kept, well maintained, and all the nice old brickwork you can still see, smoke laden. Of course, again, we used to try and get through the long tunnels early in the morning before other boats had gone through, because they just become filled with smoke and you couldn't see a thing. We used to sing through the tunnels quite often because the sound reverberates. I used to like them. They were warm and dry in the winter and nicely cool in the summer. Except you had to watch for the drips pouring down through the vent holes. You got, I mean, you could see it coming, so you dive down under the cabin. And we used to steer from standing on the coal steps.
Oh, give me land, lots of land under starry skies above. Don't fence me in. Let me ride through the wide open country that I love. Don't fence me in.
Well, I suppose we always remember the coal cargoes because we always brought coal back down the cut to the canal side factories. There was Glaxo and Nestles and ABC and Heinz. And we were loaded with loose coal, which plummeted down into the hold from big chutes. And we used
had our shovels. We used to shovel it around and sort of level it off.
Yes, because upon us depended the level of the boats. I mean, nobody else was going to make the boats swim, as we used to say, unless we leveled off the cargo. I mean, these bags of coal, I look at them with mixed feelings. They look very nice and neat and tidy, but I'm jolly glad we didn't have to hump any of them around.
No, but at least the thing about this coal is you didn't get, or at least with the cabin, you didn't get everything covered in a film of coal.
I quite agree.
You know, you try to shut everything up. It's still the dust got through into everything. You know.
I can still taste it as I talk about it.
Oh, I can't, but I can see my feet. In my nightmares, I see my feet absolutely black with coal dust.
I mean, everything was covered in coal.
Extraordinary was the amount who had moustaches. You'd never noticed them before. When they were covered with coal dust, it was perfectly awful. It was quite frightening, really.
It was quite a business because to move the boats, you see, the chute was fixed. And so we had to move the boats as the coal was plummeted down. We used to stand on the side and grab the girders and literally with brute strength move the boats up and down so that we get a load of coal here, another lot there. And the men weren't bothered about whether we'd moved the boats in time or whether we were in the way. We had quite a lot of male chauvinists around in those days.
Well, they all said that carrying coal is infinitely preferable to carrying wheat.
Oh, yes.
Grain, because the grain, if it's fermented at all, the
or if it got wet,
or something
used to grow. You used to have to lift all these floorboards, crop out underneath. It was a whole day's work after you'd offloaded, just cleaning up the hold, scrubbing the hold. I mean, it wasn't and these chains that you see across, they were twisted, I forget what you call them, in order to keep the sides of the boat in. If you didn't do it, the cargo would make the sides warp, and you could stick in a lock as easy as anything, and if you did forget to do this, it was disastrous. And very often, you see, when we were loaded, these narrow planks were bolted along the height of these struts, and then they were clothed over, and to get to the front end of the boat, you literally had to run along them, balancing a sharp pole very often. So you had to be pretty agile in those days, you know, to cope with these sort of situations.
You did become nippy, because the alternative to not being was so grim that you learned to nip. Sharpish.
It's a long day's work for the girls, and they take it in turn to have rest breaks. These breaks are usually short, however, as every lock calls for all hands to get the boats through.
Here we are, all three of us again, sitting in a boatman's cabin. How many years, Helen?
42.
42 years since we all sat in a cabin at the end of a long working day.
And the only thing about it is we now just need to sit in the boatman's cabin much more than 2 cars and along the top of it.
Yes. Anyway, here Virginia and I sitting on the crossbed, which was a double bed on which 2 boat people used to sleep, man and wife, but they were shorter than we were. We were rather tall. And we didn't have such a decorated cabin as this because it was strictly utilitarian. There weren't these marvellous plates and decorative cups and so on around in the war times. The real boat people had them from days gone by.
Yes.
For those who were born and bred on the cut is their sole background. Running the boats and working the locks is their past, present and future.
So how did the trainees regard the traditional boatmen and women with whom they shared the waterways?
Well, I think actually we didn't have a lot to do with them. We, you know, they led their separate lives and they didn't really mix with us. Tried to match them, you know. We used to work really hard because we wanted to be as good as they were.
They were shy people, not used to mixing, and once you got talking to them, you know, if we talked just about generalities of the state of the water, the currents,
I think it gave them something of interest to talk about.
Oh, I think it did. They didn't know what we were quite. Yes, because we wore trousers and the boat women didn't in those days.
Yeah,
I suppose we were all rather independently minded young women who liked to challenge. The war had probably affected our lives quite crucially, and it was a kind of let out or a step sideways, I called it, from the conditions into which the war had forced you.
We had nobody over us, you know. We were three people made a team, and it was up to you how you did. You had nobody above you to tell you what to do. You worked together, sort of thing, and I think that was very good, you know. And a lot of, like the services, you always had somebody above you telling you what to do, and this is your sort of independent life, really.
There weren't any men for us, unfortunately. I mean, if I could have met a nice boatman, I'm quite sure I'd have had my claws into him.
If you wanted to go back to it today, I'm not sure whether it would be the same. I mean, when you see the plastic and the rubbish in the canal, I think that would upset you. Yes, and the sort of squalor and the wharves and the factories are now all empty, which were all, you know, working when we used to go along the canal. I think one would get upset, you know, if you went back to it. If you could go back to it, say, I think I find it upsetting anyway.
Well, the canals were totally for commercial use in those days. We had no pleasure craft. I don't remember any pleasure craft. Do you?
Total war. Of course there weren't pleasure craft.
No. So, you know, there was a feeling of purpose that this is what the canals were built for, and you felt it was all just right. I'm afraid I was very pessimistic about the number of hire boats and pleasure boats on the canals. People who came on for a week's holiday didn't really know what they were doing. I mean, most people have to have a first time on canals, but you need help. I mean, we had 6 weeks training with experienced people. I think there should be more lock keepers, more lengthsmen, to be around, not to criticise, but to help, give advice, do minor repairs. We had lengthsmen and lockkeepers in our time. I don't say they were always helpful, but on the other hand, they often were. And that's how I would like to see the future of the canals, under proper control, before it's too late, before the subsidence and the damage done gets too extensive to be repaired.
We must not overlook the cut itself or any of the people who work on it or for it. Their work is part of our war effort and should be, later, of our peace effort. The work goes on. There's life in the old cut yet.
It was quite magical, actually.
And if you want to find out more about the narrowboat trainees, well, you can get this book, Troubled Waters, by Margaret Cornish, from your local library or local bookshop.